Alright, we'll try this again. Lost something there. Too bad. Finance workers engulfed in dust and debris from the Twin Towers collapse say the attacks and return to Wall Street a week later when officials insisted it was safe triggered their diseases. There's no other established cause, nor toxic soup or irradiated drywall. In fact, the 70,000 victims represent the largest cancer cluster in history, even more victims and survivors of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined. Of the 70,000 victims, over 90% say they were exposed within a 1 mile area, yet the cover-up has been so thorough that only one death has been officially reported and only a small number of victims have been paid compensation due to a system ripe with denial, disinformation, and corruption. This is in the June issue of the Free American. Again, there are so many things happening, including testimony from a ex-CIA CIA pilot who gives sworn testimony that no planes hit the Twin Towers. Even now there's film up showing the plane, and the wing goes behind the building. One of the wings, as it's flying into the World Trade Center, one of the wings goes behind a building and disappears, so it shows and proves that it was just falsified. It was networked. It was whatever you want to call it. It was done. There's another story here about child sex trafficking in America. That's pretty devastating. The Child Protective Services are being linked to this child trafficking. No greater nightmare than for a parent to lose their child. Subsequently, it's undeniably an inborn instinct for the majority of parents to guard their children's welfare with their lives. When we read or hear about parents who've lost children, our collective hearts break for those parents and grieve for the lost children. What do we do as parents when key officials, large corporations, as well as powerful governmental institutions, the key players in both stealing and sexually abusing our children? That's in the next issue of the Free American. Story of a woman by the name of Monica who had her son taken away and given to two gay guys who've been sexually abusing him since. And we've also got a story about a Marine. One Marine, I got a picture of him here on his Harley, who went across the border, actually made a wrong turn and accidentally crossed into the Mexican border. We got millions of Mexicans coming up here. He turned across into the border and is being held and tortured in a Mexican prison. Now, the bulk of my magazine, or many pages in the magazine, starting at page 18, I have an article here about who controls the agreed-upon reality through the mainstream media and why they fear disclosing the truths about extraterrestrial reality. Well, I've told you pretty much sarcastically that the reason they don't want what's going on here? Let me look at this. They don't want you to know about the fact that we could have lunch on the moon and be back in time for dinner here, not use a drop of gasoline. Turns out that is probably more accurate than you would believe, than you would want to believe. And that's also this article contains the story about Admiral Byrd and his expedition to the South Pole. This issue of the Free American will reveal that Hitler never died. He retired to South America. He was protected in Argentina. He was protected by the FBI. He was protected by the Kremlin. Because you see, the bankers they take care of their own. Bankers finance Hitler, and Hitler did amazing things for Germany. And of course, he's been demonized and subsidized ever since. I've got a lot of the truth about Hitler in this issue of the magazine, and on my website, and on the Free American. It's pretty interesting. And I'm telling you, you just can't get any better. And now, if every one of you out there listening to this simply bought the May issue of the Free American and the June issue, I'll have it up in a couple of days. I've got to finish a little bit of the editing. You can read 11 issues of the Free American on there right now. I need some help. I had a motorcycle break. I put it in the shop. They want $1,500. I don't have $1,500. But if every one of you listening to this donated $1, go to freeamerican.com. Donate $1. 10 if you can afford it. 100 would be even better. But if it was just $1, then I would know that I've reached somebody, that somebody is being educated. Now, you can read 11 issues of my magazine, starting about in April when I restarted this whole thing, January maybe. You can read what we've already done. For $2.99, you can get the May issue, April issue, March issue. 3 issues. That would give me $10. If 10 of you do that, we need 100. I need 100 people to buy a copy of my magazine. If you bought 10,000 copies when I published it and put it in the bookstore. I've cut out all of the middlemen. I'm not paying Hearst for the paper. I'm not paying DuPont for the ink. I'm not paying Rockefeller for the gasoline to deliver tons of paper. Read it online. Share it. Let people know this is about an education. And it's getting close. It's coming down to the wire here. Now, this article is by Dan Willis. He's one of the Disclosure Project's top secret military witnesses that testified at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. in 2001 in front of every major media, an event that should have changed the world but was manipulated by a controlled media. He explains how the history of how a secret government operating illegally within our national security system has maintained control of the media in secrecy for over 60 years. He served in the U.S. Navy as a high-speed code operator at Naval Communications Station in San Francisco, as well as combat action in Vietnam. An ex-radio broadcast engineer and ABC newsman, Dan, has taken a keen interest in how the media has withheld the disclosure of the full message to the public, a message based on hundreds of credible military and intelligence witness testimonies. This article reflects on the question, who controls the agreed-upon reality through the mainstream media and why they fear disclosing the truth about the extraterrestrial reality. Now, folks, I've been telling you for years, yeah, the ETs are real. One of my father-in-laws, let's say my children's mother, my children's grandmother got around. One of her husbands was Secretary of Agriculture, who told me about their marijuana. He also worked with Billy Solestas under LBJ and got a little bit of heat for that. My other father-in-law was Lieutenant Colonel Lloyd Conrad, a Marine Colonel who escorted the alien from Roswell to Truman's office. And we're going to touch on this. This series will go over June, July, and probably August, because we're doing it year by year. And what I'm sharing with you right now is the beginning. This is in there. What is agreed upon reality? It is your perception of the world around you. This begins to take form from the moment of your birth and through the years over the indoctrination of information from everything from your school education to what you see on television. All this information helps form your perception of the world, but have you noticed that every so often there appears to be an unexpected glitch in that reality? As expressed in the movie The Matrix, when Morpheus explained to Neo, let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it in your entire life that there's something very wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind driving you mad. But we're not talking about a science fiction movie. The people obviously sense that there's something wrong, very wrong with this world, and our perceptions have been manipulated to hide the truth behind the extraterrestrial reality. As Robert Kennedy once said before he was assassinated, I found out something I never knew. I found out my world was not the real world. A major key to unlocking understanding of this hidden reality is the extraterrestrial UFO issue. No one can claim to be absolutely expert or authority on this subject, as it is surrounded in compartmentalized secrecy, and truly the most one can do is just scratch the surface to look for the indicators that have surfaced which point to a fuller picture, being careful not to elude yourself to an absolute conclusion, as the rabbit hole goes many levels deep. These indicators or glitches on the agreed upon reality can many times be revealed from the leaked documents and whistleblowers that have collaborating information that indicates a reality which extreme efforts have been done in order to keep hidden the full truth from the public, despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Now, what is presented here are some of the indicators based on historical elements outside of what the history books have taught us in school, in which anyone can verify historically the information and the indicators on a historical timeline we're about to explore. Most of it can be verified by reputable authors on the subject with references at the end of this document. And some elements that can be alleged to have happened due to lack of official supporting evidence surrounded by some events, but these are included only as possible collaborating indicators of the larger picture. In this article, Dan Willis says, I will inject my own first-hand experiences and observations which appear to be consistent with the other agendas other indications of an agenda dictated by unwarranted influences that have infiltrated and are affecting all of our lives, whether we are conscious of it or not. You know, folks, I have been absorbing most of this for so many years, and it even started because I read so much. So when I went into prison, I was able to write novels about a past and a future that may or may not have existed. But in going back and editing what I wrote so many years ago, I found out, hey, I was right about a lot of this. What we're going to be talking about now, I wrote about 45 years ago without the backup evidence that I've got today. That's why I've waited 45 years to put out some of these books, two books, because I needed experience. I need life experience. So I traveled to 49 states. I rode motorcycles. I worked on boats. A lot of my books are kind of like Louis L'Amour books. If I wrote about a bar in the Bahamas, I was there. If I wrote about a mountain pass in Colorado, I was there. Now people have asked me, oh, Clay, this character's you, isn't it? This character, no. My character's younger, faster, stronger, better looking, got more money, and killed more people than I have. But again, the books that I wrote 45 years ago are now being surfacing, talking about a distant Atlantean civilization. I made it real. I wrote it as fiction. I couldn't prove it. If I was there, it's a distant buried memory. Maybe there's reincarnation. We don't know anything for sure. But a lot of the fiction, like Jules Verne, the whole War of the Worlds thing, and we covered this in this article, was a PSYOPs operation. They wanted to see how you would react. In many of the movies that you see, even The Matrix, probably closer to the truth than any of us want to admit. David Koss, my friend, and one of the people that sent donations in, David talked about the moon being hollow, that being constructed, and a lot of the documentation that I've gotten, a lot of this article indicates he's right. And even this earth could be hollow. The northern lights, that might be just that inside sun, the core. They say it's a nose core. They just don't tell you that we could be living under there. Could be people under there. Now they're starting to find out. There's entrances to this underground caverns. There's underground tunnel systems that crisscross our oceans, that crisscross our continents. They just found an interest off of Santa Barbara. So, in other words, what I write is fiction, may be a reality that we're just not being told. More things, Horatio, under heaven and earth. I've made the statement that I plan on just working on my fiction, writing fiction in the future. Frankly, because you can't handle the truth. What part of the Second Amendment don't you understand? That's why I started the militia. I started riding motorcycles because I love them. I love the freedom, I love the thrill, I love the skill it takes to survive on it. People ask me after my accident, aren't you afraid to ride now, Clay? Am I afraid to ride? You ever trip? You afraid to walk? No, I'm not afraid to ride. And I've also told you that bikers are the best people on the planet. They care more about this country than anyone else. I'm really writing for them. I'm working for them. I belong to them. I helped start them. That million biker run, the Rolling Thunder, filled up the Pentagon parking lot. Harry Riley tried to hitch his wagon to there. I helped start that. I advertised it in every one of my magazines for the last 20 years. Not to toot my own horn, man, but, you know, what do you do when you're an individual, not connected with government, but you got a little bit of intelligence, you got a little bit of an IQ, probably too high to be a cop. And no offense, I'm sure there's a smart cop out there. I'm sure there's a good Jew out there. I'm sure not all Muslims are fanatical, beat their wife, and, you know. But these, we are influenced by what's put around us. Television is called programming. It's not called programming for nothing. This is the counter to the program. This show, this articles, these articles, this magazine, this website, this Facebook, it's letting you think in other directions. What if? What if? This is I mean, you are living in the twilight zone. I even wrote about that. Oh God, stay, I pray. Show us the way so in hell our souls don't burn. Your God doesn't care. My burden he doesn't share. Yet still to me you say beware. Of hell, you shouldn't care. You can't go. Because you're there. You stay till you pay. As I said before, you stay as men, not more. Now, let's get back to this article here. This is in the next issue of the Free American. And it's got a lot of truth. You need to get this one, $2.99, or give me a donation and I'll send it to you as soon as it's done. I'll send you the May anyway. May's pretty damn good. Our human history has been filled with those who feel they're entitled to rule and dictate over and enslave others by imposing their will, not respecting each being's equality and the right of choice and free will that harms no one. Where the original golden rule is interpreted instead to mean whoever has the gold makes the rules, making survival of the many based on a monetary system where the good of all humanity can be corrupted with financial power and influence by the few, as expressed by Mayor Amschel Rothschild. Give me control of a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws. This is the fundamental of how laws governing the people of this planet are influenced and can be corrupted by the wealthy elite who feel entitled to be the people's rulers. And you know what? In some ways, my God save us, please. They're almost right. They're almost right. You're not. Alright, what happened here? Okay, I lost something here. I've lost everything here. Alright, what's going on here? What's happened here? Got Truth back on. What about Blog Talk?
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Presenter.
To start your show now, press 1.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we're reconnecting you now.
Alright, don't know how long I was disconnected there. I'm back on Truth Radio, back on Blog Talk, I'm back on Crusade. My apologies there, folks. Now, let me see here. I also lost my thing here. Let's do that. Let me get back into the chat room, and then I will continue with the show. Make a donation, folks. I've got a motorcycle I got to get out. It's my only transportation. Not complaining about that. I don't mind riding a damn motorcycle. And, but, takes time to keep it up. Takes time to do this. Takes money. I need to raise $1,500 or I don't have any transportation. If I don't have any transportation, if I can't get food, you know, what am I supposed to do here? Check into a nursing home and live out my life there? So, no, I'm not doing that. Simply ain't happening. Alright, I think I'm back in everything. Okay, am I back here, David? I've got the chat room back up again. Where did I stop here? Where did I stop? Okay. Dr. D Charge is back on and listening. Good work. Good work. Now, I've been talking about the next issue of the Free American. If you didn't get this part, this is the important part. So, if I repeat, forgive me. One, our human history has been filled with those who feel they are entitled to rule and dictate over and enslave others by imposing their will, not respecting each being's equality and the right of choice and free will that harms no one. Where the original golden rule is interpreted instead to mean whoever has the gold makes the rules. Making survival of the many based on the monetary system or the good of all humanity can be corrupted with financial power and influenced by the few. As expressed by Mayor Amsel Rothschild, give me control of a nation's money and I care not who makes its laws. This is the fundamental of how the laws governing the people of this planet are influenced and can be corrupted by the wealthy elite who feel entitled to be the people's rulers. Don't let them do that, folks. If you support me, they don't want you to support me, so you'll have thousands of people, hundreds of people that benefit from this corrupt system, telling you, oh, don't listen to Clay Douglas. Oh, he's a radical. Oh, you believe in UFOs? Oh, he wants to give your kids drugs. Oh! They will find anything that they can to try to demonize me, to keep you from listening to me, because if you listen to me and I tell you the truth will set you free. We can do this. They're doing it in Africa now. They're doing exactly what I told you to do in your neighborhood. Put solar on your roof, grow food in the backyard. They're doing that in the middle of Africa. They don't have power companies there. They don't have nuclear power plants. And they're thriving. They're thriving. Enslavement of humanity over gold has its roots that go back over 450,000 years, according to ancient Sumerian clay tablets that still tell a story of gods who came down to earth and ruled over them. They were called the Anunnaki. That is translated to mean those who from heaven came. The Anunnaki had gold mining operations on earth, and these gods, not wanting to do the hard work themselves, revolted. A conflicted decision was made to genetically modify a worker race using modified form of their DNA, combined with that of existing primates that have evolved here on Earth, thus creating a new, made in their image, modified species that was intelligent enough to do the work they needed, but was limited with a decreased lifespan. The gods were pleased with the result because the new workers never revolted. They were fed and given shelter and didn't mind hard labor and didn't complain. The reason for this, of course, was that this new species didn't know better. This was actually all they knew, their life of being slaves, as their life of being slaves. The Anunnaki mated with some of the females of this new species, created hybrid bloodlines in the human race. Some of this ancient knowledge was passed down to a few initiates into the mystery schools and secret societies around the world. Indications appear to show that a wealthy bloodline of ruling elite class tied into secret societies throughout the centuries has dominated the ruling families and the wealthy world banking elite, whose outlook and ideologies of elitism, racism, eugenics, enslavement, false flag operations, and psychological warfare for world domination was shared with a similar ideology by the Nazis in pursuit of a one-world fascist totalitarian government. In fact, this banking cabal were the ones that had originally funded the Nazis into existence. Before the end of the war, it was revealed that the Nazis had a fallback plan to infiltrate into the United States via the same group that funded the Nazi operations originally. Their approach was to have a very long-range plan over time and using psychological warfare to completely dominate the full spectrum of information of the American public in all forms of media and education in order to manipulate the population's perception of their agreed-upon reality and thus influence their interpretation and decision-making abilities in order to effectively hide their secret compartmentalized operations of a hidden breakaway civilization as they slowly advance their agenda for world domination. The Nazis called this plan worldview warfare. To better understand and find what indications there might be to reveal a pattern for the basis of this hypothesis, and look at the sequence of events starting at the beginning of the 20th century in an attempt to better answer the question of who's behind controlling the perception of the agreed-upon reality and why they fear disclosing the truth about extraterrestrial reality. $1900. So we're going to do this as a timeline, and this whole story will not be told in just the June issue. I'm sharing the June issue with you now, but it goes on to cover this whole century. So it will be in the July and the August issues also. And, you know, for whoever you are sitting out there going, oh, Clay agrees with Alex. Alex Jones blames it on the Nazis. Now Clay's blaming it on the Nazis. No, that's the divide and conquer shit again. Were the Rothschild Jewish? Yes. But were the Rothschild German? Yes. Were the Germans smart? Did Hitler try to break away? Did he, here you got the factions of the New World Order, the fascists, the communists. Hitler was opposing the communists. But on the other level, the bankers that funded communism, funded Hitler, funded this country. So it all boils down to the who has the gold makes the rules, and it's been that way for 450,000 years. We can't get lost. Oh, Clay's a biker. I don't like bikers. I don't like leather. I like fur. You can't get sidetracked here, folks. Do I write science fiction? Is everything I say true? To the best of my ability. But I wasn't there 2,000 years ago. Maybe. Did I walk with Jesus? I've got memories of it. I've got memories of being at that time. I've got memories of watching the spaceships build the pyramids. Could be just active imagination. But all of the information that researchers from all over the world are now covering and studying, it said maybe Clay was right. Maybe Jules Verne was right. Jules Verne predicted the submarines. Jules Verne talked about, or Edgar Rice Burroughs talked about life on Mars. Robert A. Heinlein did too. So maybe what I'm writing, what I'm working on, and what I'm doing right now is a little bit more important than you believe. They don't want you to do it. The ADL, the Southern Poverty Law, the CIA, the NSA, the Mossad, they don't want you listening to me because I want to set you free. They want to demonize me, Luciferize me. Be a good slave. Don't rebel against your masters. What's wrong with you? Don't rebel against your masters. Oh my ass. Come on, guys. Let's get real here. In 1900, the first radio signals had. Okay, let me break real quick. I'm gonna tell you. In 1900, the first radio signal received on Earth believed by Tesla to be from extraterrestrials. Nikola Tesla, while working with his magnifying transmitter, revealed a number of signal of patterns that he called counting codes. This, in fact, was the first cosmic radio signal ever detected. He believed it was either from Venus or Mars, and that he was the first to receive a message from extraterrestrial civilization. Tesla wrote the following enthusiastic letter about the potential contact to the American Red Cross, New York City. The retrospect is glorious, the prospect inspiring. Much might be said of both, but one idea dominates my mind. This, my best, my dearest, is for your noble cause. I have observed electrical actions which have appeared inexplicable. Faint and uncertain though they were, they gave me a deep conviction and knowledge that our ere long all human beings on this earth as one will turn their eyes to the firmament above with feelings of love and reverence, thrilled by the glad news. Brethren, we have a message from another world, unknown and remote. It reads 1, 2, 3. And in 1901, President Theodore Roosevelt became our president. And in 1905, banking elite J.P. Morgan suppresses the release of Tesla's free energy to the world. The moment J.P. Morgan, who was Nikola Tesla's financier, learned the project he was funding for Nikola Tesla would also bring free electricity to the world, in which Morgan couldn't meter or control, he pulled the funding and had all of Tesla's work dismantled, and Tesla the man responsible for originally inventing wireless communications and the electrical power grid, both of which we use every day, became obscure in the history books. Giving the credit instead to Edison and Marconi, Tesla was left penniless for his unselfish motivation to humanity, so that J.P. Morgan could maintain his profitable control. This is an image of the priorities of the banking elite as to whether or not they would release free energy for the entire world against their existing vested energy empires. International 1913. International global bankers set up a loan plan through the Federal Reserve to put the United States into an ongoing interest-bearing debt. The Federal Reserve Act was in part written by Paul Warburg, whose brother Max Warburg worked with I.G. Farben in Germany, who funded Hitler. U.S. now begins its collection of interest debt through the IRS to the international global bankers, using the Federal Reserve notes, amassing trillions of dollars of debt to the American people. A number of people had something to say about this situation. The government should create, issue, and circulate all the country and credits needed to satisfy the spending power of the government and the buying power of the consumers. By the adoption of these principles, taxpayers will be saved immense sums of interest. Money will cease to be master and become the servant of humanity. Abraham Lincoln. Before 1913, he knew. Bankers own the earth. Take it away from them, and they believe them with the power to create credit. And with a flick of the pen, they will create enough money to buy it back again. If you want to be slaves to the banker, pay the cost of your own slavery, then let the bankers control the money and control credit, said Dr. Sir Hosea Stamp, director of the Bank of England in 1940. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the land their fathers conquered. I believe that the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Thomas Jefferson. And in 1970, the banking cabal purchases the main newspaper to control the perception of information to the public, like the New York Times. The start of mainstream media control was initiated when J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, and Warburg, the same person who helped create the Federal Reserve in 1913, purchased the main 25 newspapers of the country and dictated how the information was released under the guidelines and policy to control the perception of information to the public. These policies were then later controlled and formed by the Council on Foreign Relations. In 1919, membership delivers technology of circular flying machine plans to the Nazis. Mediumship. The technology instructions for the creation of a circular flying machine was being received by Maria Orsic, a gifted medium who was the leader of the Vrillanum, a team of psychic girls serving the Vril Gulshot. Meeting was held in an old hunting lodge near Bruxgarten, Germany, when Maria Orsic presented to a small group assembled from the Thule, Vril, and Black Sun societies telepathic messages she claimed to have received from an extraterrestrial civilization existing in the distant Aldebaran solar system, 68 light years away, in the constellation of Taurus. The information concerned the construction of an unusual flying vehicle which could alter the flow of time around it. Upon studying the otherworldly designs, Dr. W.O. Schumann and his associates from the University of Munich and the Thule Society realized the channeling actually contained viable physics, and over the ensuing years, construction was initiated. By 1922, development of a working prototype was a redesigned 5-meter RFZ-2, was successfully flown in 1934, and eventually flying disc development was taken over by Division SSEIV of Hitler's Third Reich. If true, this may have given the Nazis an undisclosed technological edge. Subsequent levitation craft advances between 1941 and 1944 spawned the Hannibal series, the heavy hitters of the Reich's saucer fleet, driven by powerful tachyon magneto-gravitic engines called Thule tachyometers, speculated to be large spherical containers of mercury spinning around on a vertical axis. These armored saucer ships of various sizes came equipped with armament such as Panzer tank cannon turrets mounted on the underside, as well as Klystron laser cannons. The Hambo of the Reich saucer fleet, and we've got pictures here in the magazine, are authenticated, but the following statement by Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens is a valid testimony. The Germans had 9 research enterprises developing, testing flying discs. Investigations revealed that 8 of these factories, along with the scientists and key figures, were successfully evacuated from Germany. The 9th was destroyed. U.S. Air Force Colonel Wendell Stevens stated that we had classified information that some of these research enterprises were transported to Antarctica, to a place called New Swabia. At least one disc research company was transported to that location. Another went to the Amazon, and a third to the north coast of Norway. They were evacuated to secret underground facilities. Apparently, the combining scientific research of Germany's brilliant scientists with an analysis of ancient knowledge, mediumship information, and reverse engineering of a crashed ETV in 1936 brought about incredible results. The Tavistock Institute in 1920 became the Center for the Study of Human Behavior, Mind Control, Propaganda, and Social Manipulation. In 1920, the Tavistock Institute had its beginnings and became the Center for the Study of Human Behavior, Mind Control, Propaganda, Social Manipulation. Created in London, it spread overseas with the financial help of the Rockefeller Foundation. Its influence increased when it combined the study of anthropology, economy, organizations, politics, psychology, psychoanalysis, psychiatry, and sociology. In secret, the Tavistock guides powerful multinationals such as the Rand Corporation. After 90 years of research, one of Tavistock's main discoveries concerns child sexuality. This has a great influence on the development of personality. Early sex stimulation, they found, produces adults whose emotional development is similar to that of a neurotic child. Their second discovery is related to fear and stress. Tavistock researchers found out that people under controlled stress become more infantile and give up strongly held beliefs under group pressure to conform to popular opinion. This may explain why in the mainstream media there is so much violence, sex, and fear-inducing images. This turns people into scared, submissive children who try to evade the stress of daily life through the emotional sublimation of television, radio, movies, and video games. It is known that humans are impressionable and mimic what they see. Does it seem normal that so much of the images being broadcast through television and movies into the subconscious minds of millions, showing humans killing and hurting other humans, that are delivered through the huge assortment of crime dramas and violent movies in soap dramas, having to do with relationships? Deception is a common theme. Are we being programmed that this is the new normal? What have I told you almost every week? They don't call it programming for nothing. This is what's happening to it. This is why I can't communicate with normal people, what I consider normal people. It's like walking into a madhouse. I guess you call that Walmart. You can see in the news copycat crimes and other situations of extreme violence that have been occurring with frequency in the news. In China, they have created an entire industry of removing the violence out of movies that come from the U.S. as they believe them to have an unhealthy effect on their society. 1921, the Council on Foreign Relations was formed. The New York branch was dominated by associates of J.P. Morgan Bank. Among the members of the Council on Foreign Relations is Allen Dulles, one of the round table groups of the wealthy elite between Europe and the United States. They got the Bilderberg Group, the Club of Rome, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, Trilateral Commission, United Nations, and the Council on Foreign Relations. These are all the things that have been put in. Now, Allen Dulles was historically instrumental in furthering the fascist agenda and the Nazi infiltration after the war into America. Again, this is what I've told you, something I have a hard time differentiating. Are we, because every plank on the Communist Manifesto is intact in America today. But the definition of fascism is what Thomas Jefferson warned about. Corporations that spring up around them. Can you say Monsanto, Archer Daniels Midland, Bechtel, Brown and Root? They all profit from our misery. Allen Dulles was involved from the very beginning with Hitler's first meeting that raised him to power in 1933 as an attorney for Schroeder Bank, which financed Hitler. He made arrangements to allow Nazi spies into the CIA, falsified reports to President Truman to expand the infiltration operations. Later, after he was fired as the CIA director by JFK for his hidden subversive activities in 1963, after JFK's murder, he was then assigned by LBJ to head the Warren Commission, which determined that no conspiracy was involved in the murder of JFK in his report to the public. The implications of the Rockefeller-Allen Dulles BIS Gestapo links later revealed are nothing less than staggering, for it was Dulles who, of course, negotiated the bargain with Nazi General Reinhard Gehlen, head of Germany's military intelligence group for all of Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. The bargain that later left the immense Nazi military intelligence operations after the war still under Gehlen's operational command within our CIA. In 1929, the Wall Street crash, the Senate committee set up to investigate the Great Crash found there was corruption and insider trading between the banks and the brokers. No shit, Sherlock. 1933, January 4th, Hitler comes to power with the financial help of the banking elite. Hitler comes to power and is appointed Chancellor of Germany. On hand were prominent industrialists, at least one director of the giant douche bank, as well as IG Foreman's Herman Schmitz and Dr. George von Schnitzler, representing Farben's board of directors, according to author Eustace Mullins, a friend, who was on my show many times. Also, according to Eustace, also attending this meeting were John Dulles and Alan Dulles of the New York law firm Sullivan and Cromwell, which represented the Schroeder Bank. And February 27, 1933, the Nazi false flag operation, Hitler, in order to justify war, does a false flag operation on the Reichstag building. They successfully blamed the fire on the communists and claimed it marked the beginning of a widespread terrorism and unrest threatening the safety of the German homeland. Sound like 9/11? After the fire, Hitler invoked the German Enabling Act, similar to the U.S. Patriot Act, which permitted the suspension of civil liberties during national emergencies. Some example of this decree of the Reich President for the protection of people and state abrogated the following constitutional protections: freedom of the press, free of expression of opinion, individual property rights, right of assembly and association, right to privacy of postal and electronic communication, states' rights of self-government, and protection against unlawful searches and seizures. History repeating itself. Now, the Nazi founder of the Gestapo and head of the Luftwaffe, and the said the following at the Nuremberg trials after the war: "Why, of course, the people who don't want war. Why should some poor slob on a farm want to risk his life in the war when the best he can get out of it is to come back to his farm in one piece? Naturally, the common people don't want war neither in Russia, nor in England, nor for that matter in Germany. This is understood, but after all, it is the leaders of the country who determine the policy, and it is always a simple matter to drag people along. Whether it is a democracy or a fascist government or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to do the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked, denounce the peacemakers for lack of patriotism, and exposing the country to danger. It works the same way in every country." Enter 1933, March 4th, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The real truth of the matter, as you and I know, that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government of the U.S. since the days of Andrew Jackson. That was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, written November 21st, 1933 to Colonel Mandel House. And in 1933, the Wall Street banking fascists attempt to take over the U.S. government. The same year Hitler came to power in Wall Street, banking fascists Prescott Bush, father of George Bush, J.P. Morgan, and Rockefeller organized the U.S. government coup to create a fascist government along with the death camps in the U.S. to rid the undesirables, using U.S. Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler and 500 veterans under him to do it. If it wasn't for a whistleblowing hero, we would have lost our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and been under a complete fascist dictatorship in 1933. Oh, what did Bush say? Oh, that Constitution is just a goddamn piece of paper. General Butler instead infiltrated the plot and blew the whistle. Hold on. This hero of America later published a book in 1935 where he wrote, "War is a racket. Always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. Racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it's about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the very many. Out of a war, a few people make large fortunes. It's important to note that the German and American factions of this empire money, such as Schroeder in Germany and Rockefellers and J.P. Morgans in America, existed before the war. What was new during and after the war was the injection of Nazism as yet another contending faction within it, with all its ideological and covert operation commitments. It is therefore crucial to one's understanding of this breakaway civilization to have an understanding of the pre-war structure of these arrangements. Alright, let me take a little brief break here and see what's happening. Now I'm back in. Be right back here, guys. Try and bring up another station here. Alright, there's D-Chart still there, Captain still logged in, logged out. Well, he and Ted were in there at the same time, so I don't guess I guess he was truthful when he said he wasn't Ted. Yeah, let's see if we can get this back up. Meanwhile, I feel like a little music here. got a little problem here. Don't know what's happening with it. Don't care. Don't care. Back to, we got this going. This still going? Alright. This is still going. June issue of the Free American. June issue. 1936. As the war approached, the links between the Rockefellers and the Nazi government became more and more firm. In 1936, the J. Henry Schroeder Bank of New York had entered into a partnership with the Rockefeller. Schroeder, Rockefeller and Company, investment bankers, was formed as part of an overall company that Time magazine disclosed as being the economic booster of the Rome-Berlin axis. The partners in Schroeder, Rockefeller and Company included Avery Rockefeller, nephew of John D., Baron Bruno von Schroeder of London, and Kurt von Schroeder of Bank of International Settlements, BIS, and the Gestapo in Cologne. Avery Rockefeller owned 40% of Schroeder, Rockefeller, and Baron Bruno and his Nazi cousin 47%. Their lawyers were John Dulles and Alan Dulles of Sullivan and Cromwell. The brothers were very instrumental to the agenda. Nazi reverse engine. In 1936, the Nazis reverse engineer an extraterrestrial vehicle that crashed into the Black Forest of Germany. A German writer, John von Helsing, described the discovery of a crashed saucer in the Black Forest near Freiburg in 1936 and said that the technology was taken, reverse engineered, and combined with the information the Vril Society had received through channeling and was made into a further project called a Honenbu. It is claimed that the original treaty with the Greys was established by the Bavarian Thule and Illuminati societies as early as 1933, and that shared technology with the Nazis. Another treaty with Greys was made much later in 1954 by the Eisenhower administration. If true, that would give the Nazis a 21-year lead in the extraterrestrial technology transfer program. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and this is why I put up on my Facebook site, which is Free American 69. I put up on my Facebook site the Hollow Earth theory, and it correlates with what I'm sharing with you right now, right here. I've got the map in this issue, June issue of the Free American. Ancient maps reveal Antarctica may have been the continent of Atlantis before a pole shift. The Pierre-Reese map of Antarctica dating back to 1513, with experts conclude that the ancient maps of Antarctica were more precise than 20th century maps 300 years later. It brought hope to the Nazi search for what they believed to be their Aryan heritage of Atlantis. One hypothesis states that Antarctica is the former Atlantis buried under the ice as a result of an earlier pole shift. Once the Nazis discovered those ancient maps, they realized occult secret knowledge could be stored on the continent which was once Atlantis. In 1938, the Nazis commenced to send out numerous exploratory missions to Antarctica in preparation to build an underground base. Over 200,000 square miles of the frozen continent were mapped from the air, and the Germans discovered vast regions that were surprisingly free of ice, as well as warm water lakes and cave inlets. One vast ice cave within the glacier was reportedly found to extend 30 miles to a large hot water geothermal lake deep below. Various scientific geologists, botanists, agriculturalists plant specialist, mycologist, parasitologist, marine biologist, ornithologist, and many others. Numerous divisions of the German government were involved in the top secret project. After all the data was gathered, deep underground construction teams came pouring into the renamed New Schwabenland. They came on cargo ships, military transports, and submarines. The cargo ships coming from South Africa were posted, protected by a host of killer submarines and military ships. And in 1938, the Rockefeller Foundation funds a psychological study of the public fear reaction to a fake radio broadcast announcing an alien invasion. CBS War of the Worlds was radio broadcast by Orson Welles, who was funded indirectly by the Rockefeller Foundation through the Princeton Radio Project and guided at every stage by the CFR and psychologist Dr. Paul Lazarfield. Frank Stanton, who later became the head of CBS Radio and television, and Dr. Hadley Cantrell hired Orson Welles to adapt the H.G. Wells classic science fiction book into a radio drama format in order to study the behavior of citizens. Orson Welles apologized and said it was only meant as a Halloween prank, but it was crafted to create terror and analyze the reaction. Allegedly, Orson Welles received death threats from the Rockefellers should he ever reveal that the unforeseen reaction to this broadcast is precisely what its perpetrators had hoped to achieve and analyze demographically, psychologically, and statistically. It was the first mainstream media psychological operation heard by 60 million people. $1,700,000 believe the broadcast to be genuine. 1,200,000 were frightened enough to take action by either running away or preparing to fight the alien invaders. Dr. Hadley Cantrell later wrote a paper entitled Invasion from Mars, a study in the psychology of panic, examining the power of a radio broadcast media and its effects on the population under the direct influence of fear. In 1938, Roosevelt and Churchill sent General Donovan to Tavistock Institute for psychological operations, indoctrination, before setting up the OSS, which was the precursor to the CIA. In 1938, Roosevelt executed a secret agreement with Churchill, which in effect ceded the U.S. sovereignty to England because it was agreed to let separate special operations executive control U.S. policies. To implement this agreement, Roosevelt sent General Donovan to London for indoctrination before setting up the OSS, now the CIA, under the aegis of SOE-SIS. The entire OSS program, as well as the CIA, has always worked on guidelines set up by the Tavistock Institute. Tavistock Institute originated the mass civilian bombing raids carried out by Roosevelt and Churchill, partly as a clinical experiment. I find that pretty incredible. The bombing of Dresden is a experiment in mass terror, keeping records of the results as they watch the guinea pigs reacting under controlled laboratory conditions. All Tavistock and American Foundation have a single goal: to break down the psychological strength of the individual and render him powerless and helpless to oppose the dictators of the New World Order. Now, folks, that is exactly what has been done to me over the last 10 years, the accident, the drugging, the loss of my businesses, the loss of my family. And I'm still here, and I'm still broadcasting you. I'm still getting this magazine now. I need your support. I need your backing now. You donate to politicians. You don't seem to have any problem making $1 billion in donations to the Republicans and Democrats. Do you want to support the communists or the fascists? Communist Democrats you can call communists. The fascists you can call Republicans. You are being played by the bankers. And you got one man here that's trying to tell you the truth, trying to tell you what's happening here, trying to give you enough history. There's more to this world than you would believe. There's inside and out. I am documenting the existence of Atlanteans, and this is a pretty amazing time in our history. You need to support me. I need a motorcycle to get around on. My only transportation's in the shop. Send me $1 or $10 or $100. FreeAmerican.com. Thank you. God bless.